Most people think the hardest part of building wealth is building it. They're wrong. The hardest part is keeping it alive long after you're dead. Right now, somewhere in England, there is a family sitting in a house their great-great-grandfather built arguing about whether they can afford to heat it this winter. And somewhere in Switzerland, a family that started with less, far less, just quietly transferred $800 million to the next generation. No press release. No announcement. No one outside the family even knew it happened. Same starting point. 100 years apart, what's the difference? Stay with me, because by the end of this video you won't just know the answer, you'll feel it in your bones. Here's something nobody talks about when they romanticize old money. The first generation builds, the second generation maintains, the third generation spends, and by the fourth, most of the time, there's nothing left to spend. That's not a myth. That's a pattern so consistent, economists gave it a name. Shirtsleeves to shirtsleeves in 3 generations. The British say clogs to clogs. The Chinese say rice paddy to rice paddy. Every culture on Earth noticed the same collapse. They just packaged it differently. But here's what they didn't tell you: a small, quiet group of families cracked this pattern. Not by luck, not by inheritance alone. By doing something so deliberate, so counterintuitive that most people walk right past it thinking it's old-fashioned. It isn't old-fashioned. It's the most sophisticated wealth strategy in human history. And it doesn't start with money. It never starts with money. Let me tell you about a family dinner in Lyon, France. 1923. The patriarch, a textile merchant who'd spent 40 years building his fortune from nothing, is dying. His children know it. His grandchildren sense it. The house is full of that particular silence that only comes when something enormous is ending. Dinner is served. The food goes mostly untouched. But he doesn't talk about the money. He doesn't read the will. He reaches beneath the table and places a leather-bound journal at the center, worn at the corners, ink-stained, old in a way that means it had been read, not just kept. He opens it, and he reads aloud, not numbers, not account balances, not property deeds, principles. We do not discuss our wealth outside this house. We educate before we inherit. We give before we spend. We build what outlasts us. When he finishes, the room is completely still. His eldest son, a grown man, has tears on his face, not because of grief, because he recognizes the handwriting. That journal had been written by his own great-grandfather, passed down, added to, never broken. Those principles had survived 2 wars, a revolution, and the near-total collapse of European banking. The money had come and gone in waves, sometimes abundant, sometimes almost entirely gone. But the framework, the invisible architecture that told this family how to think, how to speak, how to move through the world under pressure, that had never been touched. That family, and I'm being deliberate about not naming them because that is precisely the point, is still active today. 5 generations, quietly influential, known in the right rooms, invisible everywhere else. You've never heard of them, and that is entirely by design. So what actually happens structurally, practically, when wealth survives a century? Let's break it down, because there are 5 things these families do that almost nobody else does. Number 1, they separate identity from net worth. New money ties self-worth to wealth. Old money treats wealth like infrastructure, like plumbing. Essential but not something you think about at dinner. When a market crashes, new money panics, old money adjusts. That emotional distance isn't coldness, it's training, built into children before they ever touch a bank account. Number 2, they make the family itself the asset, not the portfolio, not the real estate, the family. Skills, reputation, relationships, education treated as balance sheet items. Every generation a deliberate investment, schools chosen not for prestige but for network density, human capital compounded. Number 3, they govern themselves. The most durable families have internal constitutions, family councils, voting structures, rules for entry, exit, and distribution. Without governance, cousins become enemies. With it, they become allies. The Rockefellers meet annually, not as a reunion, as a board. Number 4, they weaponize patience. The average investor thinks in quarters. Old money thinks in decades. Land held through a depression, a war, a recession, and sold when 3 generations of waiting made it worth 50 times the purchase price. Patience isn't passive, it's a strategy. Number 5, they control the narrative. Who knows about your wealth matters almost as much as how much you have. Visibility invites friction, political, social, legal. The families that last aren't on magazine covers. They're in the footnotes of other people's stories. Deliberate obscurity is a feature, not a flaw. Now here's where this gets uncomfortable, because everything I just described, it requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires telling your children no. It requires watching a sibling genuinely struggle, and not immediately rescuing them with a family fund. Consider two families. Both built real wealth. Both wanted it to last. The first family rescued every stumble. Failed business covered, a reckless investment absorbed, a lifestyle that outpaced any income quietly subsidized. By the third generation, no one had ever truly faced a consequence. When the patriarch died, the wealth was gone within 11 years. Not stolen, not lost in a crash, spent, slowly, by people who had never learned that money has weight. The second family held the line. When the son's business failed, they let him feel it, then helped him rebuild with their guidance, not their money. That family's wealth is now in its fourth generation and growing. The difference wasn't love. Both families loved their children completely. The difference was what they believed love required. Generational wealth doesn't die from market crashes. It dies from softness. 100 years of wealth isn't a financial story. It never was. It's a story about identity, about what a family decides to be, not just what it decides to own. About the kind of people they commit to raising generation after generation, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The families who make it don't just pass down money. They pass down a lens, a way of seeing time differently than everyone around them, a way of sitting with discomfort while others panic, a standard of conduct, a philosophy of patience, a quiet certainty about who they are that no market correction, no political upheaval, no cultural shift can touch. That is the real inheritance. Not the houses, not the accounts, not even the name. And here is what most people miss entirely. That can be built, right now, by you, not by inheriting it, by deciding to start it. Every old money family you've ever admired was, at some point, a first generation. If this made you think differently about wealth, not just what you build, but what survives you and what kind of person survives with it, then subscribe. Because that is exactly what this channel is built for. We don't chase trends, we study what lasts.